Promotion and Development at the Ministry of Trade, and I will be your chairperson for today's session. Before we begin, I would like to outline some general housekeeping rules. First, kindly keep your microphones muted at all times unless you have been given the floor. Please save your questions for after the presentation, as time has been allotted for a question and answer session after the presentation. Should you be interested in asking a question, you may use the raise hand feature, and once identified, you can take the floor to ask your questions. I will identify persons in the order in which they have raised their hands. Persons can also use the chat feature to ask questions. We will be conducting polls during the session, so I invite you to participate and share your opinion. Lastly, kindly note that this session will be focused only on trading goods under the CARIFORUM-UK EPA, and as such, information on other aspects of the agreement, such as services, will be provided in our subsequent sessions. I thank you in advance for following the guidelines provided, and I now hand you over to Mrs. Susan Singh-Suratan, Director, Trade Facilitation, to provide some brief opening remarks.
Thank you, Trudy. Good morning, everyone. Let me begin by welcoming you to the Ministry of Trade and Industries first awareness session on the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement. I am very pleased and happy. I'm very pleased to see so many of you attending this session and interested in doing business with the United Kingdom. As you may be aware, the need for the CARIFORUM-UK EPA arose out of the UK's decision to leave the European Union. Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the region, identified the need for an agreement to govern the trading relationship with the UK post-Brexit. This new agreement, which was signed by Trinidad and Tobago on April 1st, 2019, maintains preferential access for our goods to the UK market upon its exit from the EU. As Trinidad and Tobago nears completion of its national processes to give effect to the agreement, this project being undertaken by the ministry seeks to raise awareness and increase the knowledge of existing and potential exporters of the new trading arrangement with the UK. It is my hope that the awareness sessions for the CARIFORUM-UK EPA will also support governments' efforts to increase Trinidad and Tobago's export to extra-regional markets, particularly the UK, through support to existing exporters and potential exporters. The decision to firstly cover the topic of trading goods stemmed from the feedback received from our pre-awareness survey conducted in December 2020, where it was made abundantly clear that trading goods was one of the most popular areas of interest by stakeholders. In light of this, the ministry is pleased to partner with Export TT and Ramps Logistics Limited to deliver some meaningful content to you, the stakeholders. As outlined in the program for this morning's session, the Ministry of Trade and Industry will present on trading goods under the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. Export TT will discuss the practical side of trading with the UK, and Ramps Logistics Limited will share information on the logistics of trading with the UK. In closing, I would like to wish you a productive session, and I hope that the information provided here today will enhance your knowledge of trading with the UK and ultimately translate into market entry for new exporters and increase market penetration for existing exporters. I will now hand you over to your host, Ms. Lewis, Assistant Director, Trade Promotion and Development, who will guide you through the remainder of the session. I thank you and have a good session. Trudy, over to you.
Thank you, Susan, and thanks for such a warm welcome to our participants. Now let's get into the first presentation by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. This presentation will focus on the CARIFORUM EPA, and it seeks to provide information on, among other things, the preferences afforded under the agreement. I'd like to introduce you to Ms. Melissa Marshall, Trade Specialist at the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Melissa has been working in the area of trade and goods for approximately 7 years now. She is currently leading the Trading Goods Unit of the Trade Directorate here at the Ministry in the position of Trade Specialist. Prior to this appointment, she served as Trade Analyst in the Goods Unit, as well as within the Trade-Related Issues Unit, after spending 2 years as an Associate Professional in the Investment Directorate of the Ministry. Ms. Marshall has represented Trinidad and Tobago at regional meetings with the US and the Dominican Republic, as well as the WTO on matters related to trade facilitation. Ms. Marshall is also directly involved in the upcoming negotiations for a partial scope agreement with Chile. She holds a BSc in Economics with a minor in Finance from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, and an MBA in Logistics and Supply Chain Management from the Australian Institute of Business. So she's well able to present this information to us today. Melissa, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. So as mentioned earlier, my presentation will focus on trade in the trade and goods aspect of the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement. So I'll begin firstly by giving you an overview of my presentation. Firstly, we will talk about what is covered under the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. Next, we look at the objectives of the agreement, the scope of the agreement, and the trade disciplines that are covered therein. Then we will delve into some of the products which qualify for preferential treatment under the agreement. Subsequently, we would look briefly at Trinidad and Tobago's trade with the UK and outline some of the products that have export potential in that market. Finally, I would provide information on how trade issues can be brought under the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement and where you can find a copy of it for your own browsing. So what is the CARIFORUM-UK EPA? Well, it's a comprehensive trading relationship between the UK and CARIFORUM countries. CARIFORUM countries consist of 14 CARICOM member states and the Dominican Republic. So it's 15 member states that make up CARIFORUM. So as most of you may be aware, the UK in January 2017 would have announced its decision to exit the European Union. That is the regional customs union to which it is party, giving rise to the term Brexit. So this action meant that, among other things, all other agreements that the UK was party to as a member of the EU would become null and void. So what this meant for CARIFORUM was that the preferential access it once enjoyed to the UK market under the existing economic partnership agreement with the EU would cease to exist. And so CARIFORUM member states saw it fit to negotiate a trade agreement with the UK, which would preserve that preferential access that it has been enjoying since 2008. So this agreement was negotiated over the period January 2018 to March 2019 by officials of CARIFORUM and the UK, and it was eventually signed by Trinidad and Tobago on April 1st, 2019. So essentially, the CARIFORUM-UK EPA is a rollover agreement or a replica of the existing CARIFORUM European Union Economic Partnership Agreement, and it has been applied since the UK exited the EU on January 1st, 2021. I just wish to point out that the UK has done similar exercises replicating its trade agreements with other trading partners. So CARIFORUM was just one of the trading bloc that this replication or rollover agreement was concluded with. So some of the objectives of the CARIFORUM-UK agreement, well, the agreement seeks to contribute to the reduction of poverty through giving access for exports and the opportunities to earn export earnings for goods and services. It also seeks to promote regional integration among CARIFORUM member states and also through development cooperation by the UK to develop regional policies and assist in further regionalism. Other objectives include the promotion of the gradual integration of CARIFORUM into the global economy. It also seeks to improve the region's capacity in the area of trade policy and trade-related issues through the provision of training and capacity building support, increase investment, competitiveness, and it also seeks to promote economic growth. So what are some of the disciplines that are covered under the agreement? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the CARIFORUM is a very comprehensive trading agreement, and it covers the liberalization of goods, which we will talk about, services, investment and e-commerce, and trade-related issues. When we mention trade-related issues, we speak to issues such as procurement, competition, investment, and the environment. So this graph just shows basically a snapshot of the different parts of the agreement. So part 1 of the agreement deals with the objectives, as I mentioned, the principles of the agreement. Part 2 talks about trade-related matters, and under that part is where trade in goods is captured. Trade in goods is set out from Article 9 to 59 of the agreement, and under part 2, there's also investment provisions and trade-related issues provisions. Part 3 of the agreement deals with dispute settlement, and it outlines the procedures that would be applicable should there be any disputes among the parties. Part 4 talks about general exceptions, that is security exceptions, clauses, etc. Part 5, institutional provisions. It outlines the different institutions that are set up under the agreement, such as the CARIFORUM-UK Joint Council. There's a Trade and Development Committee, a Parliamentary Committee, and a Consultative Committee. Part 6 talks about the final and general and final provisions of the agreement. It speaks to entry into force and the signatories of the agreement, etc. And then there are a number of protocols that are attached to this agreement. There's a protocol on rules of origin, also one on cultural cooperation. So as I mentioned before, the agreement is very comprehensive. So we'll move quickly into the most interesting part of the agreement, and the subject that I think most persons are interested in is what is covered under the agreement. So let's first look at the exports, CARIFORUM, and by extension, Trinidad and Tobago's exports into the UK market. So all of Trinidad and Tobago's exports, with the exception of arms and ammunition, can enter the UK market duty-free. So there's duty-free, quota-free, meaning there's no limit on quantity into the UK market. So you don't even need to think about whether your product can go into the UK duty-free. It is covered. Important things to note is that for your product to be able to qualify under this agreement, it must meet the rules of origin that's set out in the agreement. So when I share the link with you to the agreement, you can look at Annex 2 to Protocol 1, and you will see what are the rules that apply to your particular product. And we'll get further information on rules of origin in the upcoming presentations. So just to summarize, in other words, you cannot import a product, a finished product from a third country and simply re-export it to the UK and expect that you pay no duties. It must be that this product is a Trinidad and Tobago product. So the certifying authority for certificates of origin, and certificates of origin is the document that will state and give that assurance that your product is a Trinidad and Tobago product, meaning that it was manufactured or made in Trinidad and Tobago. So the certifying authority for certificates of origin under the agreement is the Customs and Excise Division, and Exportity will also, in their presentations, to the certificate of origin. And so I just want to point out that the access to the UK market under this agreement is really substantial, and it opens up a market of over 65 million persons. So I invite you to consider the UK market. I know CARICOM and the US and Canada has been more of the common markets that exporters are looking at, but I invite you to look at the potential that exists in the UK market. We do know too that the creation of this market access does not necessarily mean that that it will translate into market presence or market penetration, as there are a number of requirements that you may need to meet to enter the market. And so we will try to provide as much information on this as we can in Export TT's presentation in terms of some of the procedures and documents that are involved in getting your products into the UK market. So as it relates to importing from the UK, Appendix 1 to Annex 3 of the agreement sets out the liberalization schedule for goods imported from the UK. So this agreement takes into account the different levels of development between the UK and CARIFORUM states. So as such, while UK would have granted substantial market access to us, we would have not granted as open access to our market. And so the preferences granted by CARIFORUM are treated in two ways. It's either a phased reduction of duties, that is, we reduce the duties incrementally over time, or some products were granted immediate duty-free access. And in just a minute, I'll show you what the schedule looks like. So, and it's important to note that some of the products were also excluded from the agreement. Those are the products which are sensitive for member states, and so they were not covered, and no preferences were granted, meaning that they will pay the MFN rate of duty upon entry into the respective CARIFORUM member states. So just to briefly state that the majority of the products under the agreement has been granted a phased reduction of duties over time, with full duty-free treatment to be accorded by 2033. Some of the products, as I mentioned, has immediate duty-free and others phase reduction. Some of the examples of the phase reduction, where phase reduction of duties were applied, related to fruits, teas, spices, tuna, wood, carpets, clothing, tableware, and kitchenware. Where immediate duty-free treatment was granted to the UK imports from the UK, we have wood pulp, silk yarn, cotton yarn, glass, and tubes and pipes. In terms of products that were excluded and so sensitive to the region, these included frozen animal meats, milk and creams, butter, cheese, honey, rice, sugar, confectionery, chocolates, and biscuits. So that's just a brief idea of how the imports are treated from the UK. So next, let's just move to a picture. This is what the schedule looks like under the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. There is not a schedule for exports from Trinidad and Tobago to the UK because, as I stated, everything is covered except arms and ammunition. So this schedule applies to imports from the UK. So at the top, you would see if the years going horizontally on the top row. It's the first of the first month 2019, and you see the years in which over the tariffs have been liberalized. We have just chosen an example here. It's grape wine of HS 220429. And how the schedule is read is that once there are countries listed below, it means that those countries, and you look for Trinidad and Tobago, and you see that it is 0 for all the years, it means that Trinidad and Tobago has granted immediate duty-free access for this product. So, and you see similarly for Bahamas, Dominica, Jamaica, and St. Lucia. And all other member states that are not listed here, they have excluded this product from liberalization. So that the products going into their market would face duties. Similarly, for 220430, grape wine of an alcoholic strength of over 0.5%, Trinidad and Tobago would have granted immediate duty-free access. If you look at Suriname, you would see that Suriname on the 1st of January 2019 applies a duty of 15%, and the duty is gradually phased until in 2020, it's also 15%, 2021, 8%, 2022, 8%, and then in 2023, on January 1st, it goes to 0%. And so for all the member states that are listed here, their liberalization schedule is listed in the table. Those who are not listed we refer to the line bolded at top, where it gives the liberalization that they would have agreed to. Moving to another example, we have chocolates here of Chapter 1806-90. Only the Dominican Republic would have granted preferences for imports of chocolate from the UK on a phased reduction of duty from 10 to 8%, gradually 6%, 4%, 2%. And all other member states would have excluded chocolates, which means imports of chocolates from the UK will face duties in all member states except the Dominican Republic. If we look at food preparations of Chapter 1901-10, we see that all CARIFORUM member states would have granted immediate duty-free, as there are no member states listed below. So the bolded line would apply to all member states. So that's basically how we read the liberalization schedule to talk about exclusions, phase reduction of duties, and immediate duty-free access. I will now briefly speak about Trinidad and Tobago's trade with the UK. I won't go into too much detail because I know Export-TT will delve into this further. But just to point out that Trinidad and Tobago over the period 2015 to 2020 has been a net importer of goods from the UK. So over the 5-year period 2015 to 2019, on average, we would have had a deficit of approximately $461 million, and a deficit in 2020, just for the period January to November, was $127.8 million. So these deficits from our analysis were mainly attributable to declines in energy products, that is, fluctuations in methanol, diesel oil, and other petroleum oils. Methanol was consistently Trinidad and Tobago's top exported product to the UK, while liquefied natural gas was moved to be the top product in January 2020. Other energy products that were exported in January to November 2020 included methanol, diesel oil, lubricating oils, hydraulic fluids, and other petroleum oils. With respect to non-energy exports, in the year 2020, Trinidad and Tobago would have exported aromatic bitters, rum, other cereals, shandy, aerated beverages, curry, or the other sauces, and also books. So just to provide an idea of the potential of Trinidad and Tobago's exports in the UK market, we have utilized the International Trade Center's Export Potential Map tool. This tool shows the untapped potential of one country's exports in another country's market. So if we were to focus specifically on non-energy products, it can be seen that food preparations for sauces and other prepared sauces was recorded at 100%, meaning that this product has reached its threshold in the UK market that we have, indicating that we export a lot of this product to the UK. Where potential exists is in the area of cereals, other prepared food from roasting cereals, because we have only used 2% of our potential in that market. With regards to rum, you'll see that 88% of our export potential has been tapped into in that product, but there still exists approximately 12% potential in that area. Paper products such as paper towels, toilet papers, there is potential for Trinidad and Tobago's export in the UK market. Also, printed books and brochures, spices. You may not be able to see exactly where spices fall, but Trinidad and Tobago utilize 7% of its export potential for spices. And as such, there's a large amount of untapped potential for the export of that product in the UK. So moving on. So now that I have shared information on how you can utilize the CARIFORUM-UK trading arrangement, I would like to share some information on the avenues for communicating trade issues, because as much as we would love for trade to go very smoothly, there are instances when issues may arise. So how can you address an issue that you are facing in the private sector? Well, you can write formally to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and we will determine whether this issue can be addressed nationally, whether it's within the ministry or whether the ministry can communicate with the Customs and Excise Division to have it resolved. If this issue cannot be resolved nationally, then Trinidad and Tobago will escalate the matter to the UK through the CARIFORUM Directorate. And depending on the nature of the issue, it can be resolved immediately or directly, I should say, with the UK, or it can be placed on the agenda of one of the joint institutions that has been set up under the agreement, such as the CARIFORUM-UK Trade and Development Committee. And in that committee, there will be discussions between CARIFORUM and the UK at a amenable solution to the issue that has been raised. And so the Trade and Development Committee would recommend to the Joint Council subsequent action to be taken. And so that decision of the Joint Council would become binding upon the parties. So I invite you to take note of this, and in the event that you do have issues trading under the CARIFORUM-UK EPA, you can reach out to the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And after all of this, where can you find the agreement to browse on your own? Well, the agreement has been gazetted on the news.gov.tt website, and we have placed the link here. And you can also find it in the SICE Foreign Trade Information System under Trinidad and Tobago's trade agreements. So definitely, I invite you to look at the agreement, look at the treatment that it accords to your products, any competition in terms of products entering from the UK, and use this tool to really plan your product, plan your marketing, and do your business plans. And that's really the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Melissa. And now the floor is open for any comments or questions from our stakeholders. Please remember you can use the raise hand feature if you would like to ask a question. I think Melissa did a very good job of explaining what the schedule looks like, how to interpret it. Perhaps that's why there are no questions at the moment. You did a very good job, Melissa. Okay, we have a few more minutes for questions, so you are still able to send a question.
Cocoa development.
Yes, just seeing you. You may go ahead.
Hi, my question for Melissa was you were right, the screen was, some of the items were very small. I'm just curious as to the export potential slide. What was what was the percentage for chocolates or cocoa or those things? I wasn't able to see properly.
Sure. Yes, that diagram was a bit small, but I do have the information for chocolate with me. According to the ITC map tool, this product has reached 100%. Well, that's according to the tool, meaning that we have a lot of chocolates exported to the UK, but that doesn't mean that, so it's at 100%, indicating that, oh, sorry. It's 100% untapped. I'm sorry.
Oh,
which means, yes, untapped.
Untapped. I like that.
Yes, untapped. I'm very sorry about that. Which means there's significant room for Trinidad and Tobago to increase its exports of these products.
Yeah,
I'm sorry about that.
No, thanks. No, because I was like, I'm wondering, because I know a lot of the cocoa, the local people who make chocolates from cocoa, and a lot of them are not exporting, but I've had some requests recently about entering the UK. So that's why I was curious, because I didn't see the little percentage in the slide, but that's good. This is excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, so we could share the link for that tool with you, so you can also go and have a look at it and other products if you're interested as well.
Thanks so much. Feel free to message me in the chat. It's fine. Thanks.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, if you want. Thanks.
Okay, great. That's a wonderful question. And I think I saw SSL conference room raising their hand. If they still want to pose a question, they can do so now.
Hi, good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. With regards to the table that you all had on the slide just now, I was wondering, the categories were non-energy oriented. Do you have any tables that are tailored towards energy oriented products or oil related products for export purposes?
Yes. Are you referring to the export potential map? Because I know I only focus mainly on non-energy. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, correct.
Yes. So there is information on energy products. We just did not focus on it for this presentation, but it is something that we can share with you.
Okay, that'd be great. I appreciate it when we get a chance.
Okay, no problem.
All right, great. So I see we have some persons we will be collaborating with after the session. Any other questions? Okay, while we're waiting for questions, and I just want to remind that there is a question from the Ministry of Trade to you, our participants, in our chat group. So you just have to indicate which letter adequately describes why you are here with us today. So please check out our chat and put a response to the question that we have posed to you. And we continue to monitor the chat. So if you have any questions that perhaps you weren't able to think about and send to us now, we might be able to pose at after our next session. Great, I see those comments coming in, very good. Okay, and so since I don't see any more raised hands coming in or questions in the chat, I think we should just proceed because we have a very wonderful presentation coming up next. And now we can move on to our next presentation, and we thank Melissa for that very informative session. Export TT is our national export promotion agency, and it is a key resource if you are looking to get your products into other markets. They promote trade not just with the UK, but with all of our trading partners. This presentation will be delivered by Ms. Kanika Espinoza, a research officer at Export TT. Ms. Espinoza has been a research officer at the Monitoring, Research and Evaluation Unit of Export TT for nearly 2 years. In this role, Kanika has assisted dozens of exporters and potential exporters in attaining market intelligence, which helped to guide their business decisions. Most recently, Kanika led a virtual market survey to Atlanta, in which she, along with a consultancy firm, met with distributors and other agencies from Atlanta, New York, and Florida to gather key information such as seller requirements, taxes, pricing trends, barriers to trade, and logistics. Currently, she is leading Currently she is leading 2 more virtual market surveys to the Dominican Republic, and she is lending guidance to 3 others with the aim of supporting Trinidad and Tobago exporters in expanding to new markets. Through her Guide to Trading with the United Kingdom presentation, Kanika will examine key data points which will allow for more informed decision-making by local exporters and therefore expand their chances for success in a new market. Kanika is a graduate of the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus with both a Bachelor of Science degree in International Relations and a Master's degree in Global Studies. We now welcome Kanika to give us her very informative presentation. Thank you for your interest and participation.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Morning, Kanika, we can hear you.
All right, great. Can you all see the screen as well?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so I'm going to be going through a brief guide on trading with the United Kingdom. It's kind of gets a little bit complicated, so this is really just a brief overview of everything, but if you would like further details, then you could come to us at Export TT and we will be happy to help you with that. So I'll be starting off with a look at the export trends. So these are the export trends for non-energy exports. That's what our scope covers. So you can see that there has been a decline basically from 2015 to 2018. There was a decline in the level of exports that we would have sent to the UK in terms of non-energy goods. But there has been a slight increase, actually a quite significant increase from 17.3 million to 26.2 million from 2018 to 2019. So we are on the uptrend for this. So it's looking like a good market for us at this point. All right, so this is what we're currently exporting, non-energy goods again. So in 2019, we'd have done miscellaneous edible preparations. So this includes everything from sauces and condiments, seasonings, ice cream. It covers quite a lot of products. So anything you could think of in terms of seasonings, spices, condiments, that falls under that HS21 code. The second top export we have done would have been beverages, so spirits and vinegar, so alcohol, soft drinks, vinegar, all of that we'd have done. Plastic goods, furniture, and light fittings would have been about 6% of all the goods that we did in 2019, followed by cereals and others. So others will include things like artwork, any other furniture items. Okay. All right. So I'll also be taking a look at the export process. So first, we'll be starting with how do you decide to export? And then understanding the market, documents and regulations, choosing an entry strategy, finding buyers, setting the price, and finally, staying power. Logistics is also a very important part of this export process, but I'm going to be leaving that to Rams Logistics, who will be coming right after me, and I'll give you all the details on that process. So deciding to export. Before you go into exporting, it's important to really take a hard look at your company to determine whether you are ready. So this is a tool that we came up with that's going to help you decide that. So first of all, are your products successful domestically? If your product is doing well in the market and you have excess capacity, then exporting may be right for you. If it is not, if you are struggling to find buyers locally and you think, okay, maybe I can go abroad, that's not the best move. You should be having success locally before you go outside of your country. Do you have a solid domestic business plan and also an exporting plan? Exporting without a plan, without strategizing properly is going to be a huge mistake. Do you have specific advantages over the competition? Or is your product unique in one or more ways? If you're exporting something that is very generic, that people can get cheaply and easily in the United Kingdom already, then perhaps this is not something that you should be looking at. Are your products competitively priced? And I'll be going into pricing a bit more later on. Do you have the resources of time, people, and capital to invest? If you are, I know we may have some small companies, so if you're a company of just 1 or 2 persons, and right now you're working long hours trying to meet demand in local markets, expanding that to exporting will be too much of a strain on your company. And you don't want to have a situation where you get an order and then you can't fulfill it. What is your level of awareness of cultural differences in the other markets? So for example, if you're doing something like pepper sauce, you need to understand the palate of the country that you're exporting to. Trinidad and Tobago and like Guyana might like our pepper very spicy, but it may be overwhelming to persons in Europe who have like more of I don't want to say bland, but less interesting taste palette. All right, so we'll also have to look at understanding the market. So generally, when we try to find new markets for our exporters, we usually start them off with the Caribbean diaspora. So after you move out of CARICOM, if you're looking at like the US and Europe, we'll focus on the Caribbean diaspora. So in England and Wales, these are the top areas where you'll find the Black Caribbean population. So you can see areas such as Lambeth, that's 4.9% of all the Caribbean population. They're located there. In Croydon, 5.3%, Southwark is 3.0%, and Waltham Forest, 3.2%, Brent, 4.0%, and Hackney, 3.2%. This is a useful tool because if you are looking at London and UK as a whole, is a very vast market, so you need to be able to pinpoint exactly where you want to export to. So as you can see on the screen, just under 600,000 Black Caribbean persons live in England and Wales, and they make up about 1.1% of the total population. So the total population being 6.6 million persons. So it's a huge market with a lot of potential for Caribbean exporters. So also understanding the COVID impact is very important as well. COVID has really shifted the way that we do business. It's shifted everything basically on a world scale. So if we look at the GDP in London, in UK, it would have fallen by an estimated 12.3% in 2020. Private consumption, meaning the level of goods and services bought by the consumers in the country, also fell by 14.3%. But we are seeing some trends towards recovery with economic growth, and it should continue into 2022. So if you're looking at it right now, especially now that the vaccine has proliferated and you're seeing way more persons getting it, I think about 33 million, so nearly half of the population right now in the UK has gotten the vaccine, which means we should be seeing some sort of turnaround with the economy in the next coming months. Okay, so these are the shipping documents that you're going to need. There is the certificate of origin. This will be issued by the Customs and Excise Division of Trinidad and Tobago, and they will be covering all certificates of origin for goods to Europe. So even if the UK is out of the EU right now, it's still going to be covered by Customs and Excise and USA. I'm going to be going into the certificate of origin a bit more later on. There's also the bill of lading. It's a document issued by the carrier. So basically the shipping company, they would issue it to you, and it confirms basically that the goods were received in an acceptable condition and they're ready to be shipped. There's also the commercial invoice. The invoice is the main document used for import control, valuation of your goods, and determining the duty. And then there is the sales contract. It's an international agreement between the buyer and seller, which determines the terms under which the goods or services are being sold. So that includes like the Incoterms. And then there's the customs declaration. It's a document that lists and details descriptions of goods bound for import or export. And finally, the insurance policy. This protects shippers against lost, stolen, and damaged packages. If you're thinking about shipping without insurance, that's not the best move, because you can never tell whether your goods are going to be held up at port, whether there's going to be some sort of accident. I mean, we're seeing what happened recently in the Suez Canal. So if your goods were there, you know, insurance would definitely help you with managing any kind of delays and any costs that will be incurred in such an instance. Okay, so this is the certificate of origin. It's called EUR1. If you ever exported to Europe previously, you would recognize this document. It's basically the same that they would have used when the UK was part of the EU, except now you'd see under section 2, I don't know if you all could see that clearly, but the only thing that would have changed would be where it says United Kingdom right now, previously it would have said European Union. So it's a very simple document that Customs and Excise will be filling out for you. And based on this and the results of this, you would qualify or not qualify for duty-free access to the United Kingdom. All right, so rules of origin. So basically there are two categories that can determine whether a good originates in the exporting country, and that would be whether it's wholly obtained or substantial transformation. So goods that are wholly obtained would be goods such as mineral products extracted from the soil, agricultural goods, live animals born and raised. So if you're selling like beef or fishes, that would all qualify as wholly obtained. And of course, fruits and vegetables grown in CARIFORUM. Substantial transformation, these are goods, they could be made from material coming from different countries, but the origin is determined as the last country in which the good was substantially transformed. And what that simply means is a change in HS code. So I don't know how many of you might be familiar with the HS classification system, but basically it's a coding system that gives a specific code to each and every product that you could think about exporting. So let's say you imported walnuts and peanuts, and then you mix them all together, and that became like a trail mix. You added in some local dried fruits and vegetables, then that would be a substantial transformation. It would shift from one HS code to another. So non-originating inputs must not exceed 15% of the total final price of the product. So if you're importing material or inputs from CARICOM, that's fine, because of course CARICOM as a whole and the DR would be covered under the CARIFORUM agreement. But if you're importing from China, Saudi Arabia, that value of those external inputs should not exceed 15% final price of the product. So the only proof that you need really to determine whether you qualify under this EPA is EUR1 and an invoice declaration. All right, so these are the labeling requirements. I mean, they're basically pretty standard. They're very similar to what we would use here in CARICOM with cross-Q. So it includes things like name of the food, best before, use by date, any kind of warnings. So these warnings would include things like drinks with alcoholic content above 1.2%. If it contains any genetically modified ingredients, if it's an accidental presence of these GMOs, then that's fine once it's less than 1%. If it's above that, then you must state that these GM ingredients are in this product. And of course, if the product has been irradiated, that must be a warning that's on the label. The net quantity information, country or place of origin, if required. The list of ingredients, especially any kind of allergens, must be highlighted. It should be in a different font, style, or a background color. And any special storage conditions and instructions for cooking. So you'd see on the screen, there is a picture of a pie and a bit of, well, what we call like a traffic light logo. So this is a voluntary thing that they're doing in the UK. But if you would like to do it for your products, they establish certain colors for certain levels of energy, fat, saturated fats, sugars, and salt. So it is voluntary, but if you want to do it, we do have additional information for you on this that you can contact me for after. All right, so choosing an entry strategy. There are 3 effective ways of entering and distributing your export product in a foreign market in the UK. For this instance, you can get your product in using an intermediary, direct selling, or using a partner. So distributors would basically purchase your product to resell to customers. So they set the selling price, and then they would ensure the management of stocks and delivery and any kind of after sales service. They will be in control of that. So all you have to do is get your product to them in a wholesome condition. Then there are agents. So commercial agents, they promote your products and they earn commission based on any kind of sale of your product in the region. So these agents could be independent or they could represent several clients in a given area. So all of these two, the agents and the distributors, would be intermediaries. Then there is direct selling. You can sell directly to a foreign consumer using a website, and I really can't stress this enough, but if you are exporting or you're interested in exporting, then building a very solid web presence is very important for you. If you are speaking to a distributor and they don't know anything about you, the first thing they're going to do is to Google you. If they cannot find anything about you, it's going to really reduce their level of confidence in you and your ability to provide your service or your good. So then there is partnering as the last one. And there are different kinds of partnering. There is co-marketing. So you can work with another company locally. Let's say you do pepper sauce and another company who's already in the UK, they're doing seasoning, but not pepper. Then you guys can work together and both promote your product in the market. So it's sort of a mutually beneficial agreement for the two of you. Then there is co-production. So again, if someone is already established in the UK and they already know how to get in, you can work with them and produce your goods together. And of course, private label. I know some persons might feel a bit strange about this, but there is a way to get your product in, but without the label of your company, if you're willing to do that. So persons, basically companies, would pay you to get your product and they will put their own label on it. Right, so finding a buyer. When we look at finding buyers, the Export TT has a very good database called Panjiva. It's a shipping database, a global trade data company, and they provide subscription-based information to us on import and export data. So we get details on commercial shipments worldwide, including contact information. So what I would have done on this screen, I would have pulled up a certain area outside of London. I believe it was just about 40 kilometers around London. And I got all of the buyers, 18 buyers who match a certain HS code. So as I explained before, the HS code is basically a code for your product. So this 210320 is ketchup. So these 18 buyers in this region are the ones who buy ketchup in UK. And we can get contact information for most, if not all of them. So if you are interested in UK, you have no idea how to get a buyer, Export TT should really be your first stop to that. All right. Okay, so setting the price. Basically, you have to look at the full process before you look at calling a price. So the landed cost, that's the full price, is total price of a product once it has arrived at the buyer's doorstep. So you start off by determining the value of the foreign taxes and tariffs that your product is going to qualify for. So most will use the CIF, Incoterm value, which means cost, insurance, and freight. So it's basically cost, which is the invoice value, your total value of your products, plus the insurance cost, and plus the shipping cost. So let's say your invoice value is at 10,000, your insurance is 1,000, and your freight is 2,500. That's going to give you a 13,500 CIF value. So once you've got the CIF value, you can then calculate the tariff. Of course, as we said before, once your product qualifies under the rules of origin, your tariff to get into United Kingdom would be 0. Your taxes, the UK taxes, the VAT is 20%. For certain products could be VAT free. So it really just depends on the product that you have, which we can do the research for you. But if it's 20%, let's assume that the CIF, 13,500 plus 0% for the duty, plus VAT, which would be 20% of that total, which would mean your landed cost is 16,200. So from that, you kind of work back to make sure that you're setting the adequate price to make sure that you still have a profit margin. Even if you don't have a profit margin, at least breaking even, because as for the first sets of shipments, you may not make a profit just because you want to establish a good relationship with the buyer first. And then once the demand in the market is established, then you could look at renegotiating your price upwards. Okay, so staying power. So we're going to look at different factors that can help you in the market or hurt you in the market. So a failure to answer emails or phone calls, you are a buyer, a seller who's located external to the country, you need to be very present, you need to be very easy to contact. Your product quality has to be consistent. If it's inconsistent between units or shipments, let's say you send a sample and the sample is very good, they really love the product, they ordered a full shipment, and then the shipment's quality has dropped significantly, they are not going to come back to you, even if it was cheaper for you to do that full shipment with the reduced quality. If you attempt to change price after you negotiate it, that's obviously a no-no. Failure to meet your supply orders on time, you need to be very realistic about your ability to supply. If you've done a contract with a buyer, you know, it's a very large buyer, and they've already told you, okay, we will need 2-3 shipments a month, and you can't reach that, then obviously this is not something you should be going into. And lack of knowledge of packaging and labeling. Your labeling has to be on point. As we said, if you stick to the cross-SKU labeling, of course, if you contact Export TT, we could provide you further details on UK labeling, but they're basically the same. Once that labeling is fine, then that means your goods will not be turned back at the border, which is ideal. Now, how to stay in the market. Deliver what you promise, be realistic in your offer and your promises. Don't promise anything that you would not be able to fulfill. So your samples should represent exactly what will be delivered. Be clear on your pricing, bring your pricing list to any meetings with a potential buyer. The buyer at the meeting should not be asking you, where's your pricing? And then you can't deliver, or you have to come up with something later on. You should have the pricing ready to go. Communication, be clear, respond quickly, and be proactive if any problems arise. If there is a problem with your shipment, be willing to offer any kind of incentives to make sure that that buyer stays with you. And of course, post-market support is very, very important. So if you're already in the market, don't just expect, okay, that your products are on the grocery shelves and that's just sufficient. It's not. You need to be still promoting, finding other promotional activities to get your product moving. Because if your product isn't moving off the shelves, then there will be no future orders. Now, Export TT also provides support through market research. We do training programs. We also have grants for things like website, product development, and shipping of samples, any kind of packaging changes. We do have grants available for that you can apply for. So we are available to help you, and this is my contact information here, so you can feel free to drop me an email at any point, and we will be very happy to help you. So I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kanika. That was a very informative presentation. And I think it was as realistic as what you've mentioned about sellers' promises. And I think persons who may not have known about how to actually export to the UK will have much more information after your presentation. And so now the floor is open for any comments or questions to Kanika.
Hi, good morning, Kanika. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative indeed. With regards to the platform that you guys use that you mentioned in your presentation, could you give us the name of the platform again, please, and how it's possible for us to access it? Is it only through Export TT or is it a standalone platform?
Okay, so the name of the platform is Panjiva. And it is subscription based, so we have access to it. It's not, we are able to share that access with companies once you make an application. So we could share it for a certain period of time. Generally, we do about between 2 to 4 weeks of access once you've completed training in the platform.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure, you're welcome.
Okay, great. I see Whitfield Turner has the hand up. You may proceed with your question.
Yes, thank you very much. I was just wondering, as you were mentioning the issue of labels, would the labels also have to factor in information that pertains to the environmental friendliness of the product in order to get into the UK market? You know, these days you're talking a lot about being sustainable and having products that are not unfriendly to the environment. So I was just wondering whether that is also a labeling requirement for UK products.
Okay, so based on the research that I took a look at, it did not appear that it was required. It is a voluntary thing that you can do that may provide some further access for your products, depending on the kind of buyer or distributor. So if a buyer distributor has a reputation for being environmentally friendly, then they will be more inclined to buy your product, but it's not mandatory at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any more questions? The floor is still open.
Okay, I'm seeing a question in the chat from Catherine Agong. Does Export TT provide advice and support for exporting services to the UK? Yes, we do. We do cover non-energy services. So if you are interested in exporting that to the UK, we could take a look at the information available for you and the kind of support that we could provide.
Okay, great. I recognize Casey Candy. Nikita wishes to ask a question.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for all the useful information thus far. Can you just retouch on the grants that you touched on for product samples, changing of packaging to be UK ready, etc.? Because we are now gearing up towards doing some packaging changes, so that would really assist us.
Okay, sure. All right, so the different types of grants that we have the co-financing. So that is a grant of about 35,000 TT per annum. And what it basically means is we will match your expenditure up to 35,000 TT on different activities related to exports. So then there is the RDF. It's a grant of about 1 million TT, and it provides funding for innovation and technology-driven business ideas. So if you have a new idea related to exports in financial services, maritime services, software design, agro-processing, any kind of manufacturing, a new kind of manufacturing process, then this grant would be for you. And there's also the grant fund facility, which assists with the purchase of machinery and equipment by export-oriented businesses. So that one goes up to $250,000 per beneficiary. So of course, there are requirements for all of these grants. The grant that you might want to look at would be the co-financing, and that would deal directly with the packaging changes and the website and product development and shipping of samples. So we can provide, I could just drop an email in the chat for the person in charge of this grant, the capacity building unit, and you could always send them an email and request further information, or you can check our website, which we have some breakdowns of the requirements there as well. Does that answer the question?
Yes, most definitely. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. While we're waiting for any other question, there's one in the chat. Is there a labeling template available we can send to potential exporters when they request shipping services to the UK? Kanika, can you possibly answer that question?
Sure. I can get a labeling template for you and I could send it. I'm sorry, Sean Patience, that's, which company is this? Sean? I feel like it's Cargo Consolidators. I think I've worked with, yes, all right. So Cargo Consolidators, we will be sending you that labeling template.
Great, and thank you, Kanika, for putting your information in the chat. Kanika can be contacted at Export TT. As you can tell, she has lots of practical information to help you get your exports to the UK. We still have some time for questions, so you can still pose your question to us or place it in the chat. While we're waiting for questions, just to let you know that we will be having some more sessions on trade with the UK covering other sectors. And so you can keep watching our social media feeds, our website for more information.
I'm seeing another question from Kool-Aid. Is there any limit on how much you can export? No, there is not. There are no quotas.
Okay, great. We have about 5 more minutes for questions. And as Kanika has shared, she can also provide assistance if you want to export energy-related products, although the Ministry of Trade's focus is on non-energy products, but Export TT is here to facilitate all of our exports. So if you have any questions, you can raise it now. Okay, well, if we have no questions, we are going to prepare for our very last presentation. And in doing so, we wish to thank Kanika for providing us with such rich and valuable information about exports. Oh, I see Whitfield Turner has one more question. And Casey Candy again. So, okay, we'll take the questions before we go into our next presentation.
Yes,
Whitfield,
I was just
Casey Candy.
wondering, in terms of Export TT, what's the relationship that they have with businesses in Tobago in terms of the job that they do?
Oh, so Export TT has an office in Tobago. We work closely with Tobago companies, especially in terms of capacity building to get them ready for export. So we do have a very close working relationship with Tobago.
Can you share where that office is located exactly?
I'll have to find the address. I actually have never been myself, but I can find the address for you shortly.
Okay, that would be appreciated. Thanks.
Sure. So I'll find it and I'll place it in the chat when I get it.
No problem.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, Casey Candy, if you would like, you can pose your question now.
Hi, good morning. You're hearing me properly, right?
Yes, we are. We're hearing you clearly.
Okay, no problem. I just have one issue to bring to the table, which is the EUR1 forms that we use to send to the UK. I know we have a bit of a delay when it comes to processing these documents because usually what happens, we have to wait until the cargo has left Trinidad in order to submit to customs in order to process. This submission usually causes a delay in sending off documents to our customers. Would anything be put in place to alleviate this delay in processing these forms? That's it for me.
Thank you. Kanika, do you have anything you want to raise on this question?
No, sorry, this would be a question for the Customs and Excise Division. We don't have any control over this, unfortunately.
And for Casey Candy, I can say that the Ministry of Trade will relay your concern to Customs, and we will get back to you on possible solution to this issue. So thanks for bringing that question to our attention, and we will liaise with Customs and Excise Division and get back onto you so that we can facilitate trade. Okay, if there are no other questions, we take the opportunity once again to thank Ms. Kanika Espinoza from Export TT for a very wonderful and informative presentation with rich and valuable information. And we can now move on to our final presentation for this morning, which will be delivered by Rams Logistics Limited. And the presentation by Rams Logistics will provide information on the logistics of trading with the UK from both the export and the import side. This morning, we're very pleased to have with us Mr. Sean Rampasad, Chief Executive Officer of Rams Logistics Limited. He describes himself in 3 words: passionate, visionary, innovative. As the CEO of Rams Logistics, Sean intends to create companies where the best, brightest, and most talented minds in the world can find a home and belong to an organization they can be proud of. Under his leadership, the company has established a clear focus on research and development, process efficiency, and cross-department collaboration. Sean focuses on building the leaders of tomorrow by motivating and connecting with millennials. He is determined to challenge the youth to fulfill their truest potential. He facilitates the growth of his team by providing opportunities for them to shine. Using his affiliations with different boards and organizations, he promotes capacity building and the development of local content. Apart from community development, Sean is a huge advocate for the advancement of the regional economy. He believes in building strong and profitable businesses to fortify the Caribbean's position in global markets. Through collaboration, Sean believes that the regional business sector can be fit to compete on the world stage. Creating strong ties within the Caribbean community is a cause Sean continues to champion. Sean believes in utilizing resources and incorporating technology to stay ahead of current trends. Pushing boundaries and challenging the norm is the Sean Rampersad way. And with this introduction, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Mr. Sean Rampersad of Ramps Logistics Limited to present our final presentation to you. Sean, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Trudy. That was a mouthful. Sorry about all of that, but yeah, that came directly from our comms team, not me. But thank you very much. I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. Just let me know when you guys are seeing my screen. Are you seeing that?
Yes, we're seeing it. You need to run the slide, but we're seeing your screen. Thank you.
All right. All right, so guys, thank you all very much. Really appreciate being here this morning. And I want to thank the ministry for giving me the opportunity to present this morning. It really is a pleasure to be here this morning. And I'm really, really happy to be able to hopefully bring some light to the logistics of moving goods to and from the UK to Trinidad. And hopefully there are some companies who will benefit from that. So, sorry, Trudy.
Yes, we're not seeing your screen anymore. We're actually seeing your Outlook page. So I think you need to keep it on your position and run the slideshow.
Let me just,
right.
Are you seeing it there now?
Yes, we're back to the presentation.
Okay, all right, so good. Let me just leave it there. 'Cause looks like I'll have to look at my side screen. All right. So when it comes to moving goods between the UK and Trinidad, I'll start from the import side. And by the time we get to my presentation, so Melissa would have done a really nice presentation giving you a background on what are the opportunities that are available. And Kinika would have went into some really good details about preparing yourself for the export. And Kinika went into the documents around customs and all of those things. So when you get past all of those things, now your next step is to basically say, I have my goods ready and I want to get it to the UK, or I have goods from the UK that I want to get into Trinidad. And today I really want to focus a lot on moving the goods from Trinidad to the UK. When you have to move goods from Trinidad to the UK, there's essentially only two ways that you can move it. You can move it via air or via ocean. Obviously, via ocean, it's a lot cheaper to move the goods. But then you're basically thinking when you're moving it via ocean, you're going to move a substantial volume of goods compared to moving it via air. If we go on the ocean side, the first thing you always have to consider is how long your goods are going to take to get to the UK. On average, from Trinidad to the UK, it takes about 16 days via ocean freight. Via air, it takes somewhere between 2 to 5 days, depending on what type of air service you take to get it to the UK. Of course, if you move in high value, very sensitive goods like chocolate, you know, that's definitely something you would want to consider moving via air. If it's something that is moved in bulk, something that is not necessarily affected by temperatures and so on a lot more, then that, if for example, it was pepper sauce that you move into the UK, then that's easily something that you could consider moving via ocean. The difference between air and ocean cost is of course substantial. Typically air costs about 3 times more than it does to move via ocean. If we look on the ocean side, there are 2 ways you could really move goods to the UK. The first is via full containers, 20-foot and 40-foot containers. And then the second service is what we call an LCL service, where your goods are moving via ocean, but instead of moving a full container, you're basically shipping around 1 pallet of goods. What I want to do was to give you guys an overview of costs. So if you look at that slide there, you would see on a 20-foot container from London to Trinidad, it's about $3,000. And from Trinidad to London, it's about $2,000. So it costs about 2/3 the amount to ship goods to the UK than it does to bring it from the UK to Trinidad. And the reason for that is very simple. We bring a lot of full containers from the UK to Trinidad, but we are sending out a lot more empty containers. So we import currently a lot more from the UK than we export to the UK. So there's a huge opportunity to reduce, to use these lower freight costs to get goods into the UK. On a 20-foot container, if you pack it well, you're basically going to pack about 10 pallets at the bottom of the container. And if your goods are stackable, you could stack another 10 pallets on top of that 10 pallets. So on a 20-foot container, you could get about 40 pallets of cargo going into there. And that's quite substantial. On a 40-foot container, it will be double the amount. Some goods are also, there's a limiting factor by the weight of the goods. So if you were shipping pepper sauce in glass bottles, typically you want to ship about 40,000 pounds per 20-foot container or per 40-foot container. So although you may have space in the container for volume, you also seriously have to consider what the weight of the item is. Because sometimes by the time you get to 10 pallets, you already pass 40,000 pounds and you can't stack another 10 pallets inside of your container. So you always have to consider the weight as well as the volume of the cargo when you're sending stuff out. And that's on the full container side. If you were shipping, if you just had, let's say, one pallet of cargo to send to the UK, you would send it via an LCL service. And Sean Patience was on the chat earlier on. Sean is with Cargo Consolidators, and they do a lot of export via LCL service. So if you have one pallet to send to the UK, you go to a company like Cargo Consolidators and you work with them, and you can give them your one pallet, and they will give you a price to deliver that one pallet of cargo to the UK. And on average, it costs about $200 to $250 to ship a pallet of cargo to the UK. Now, there are two ways we do that. And depending on the company you work with, some companies will send it directly from Trinidad to the UK. And some companies, because we don't ship a whole lot of pallets from Trinidad to the UK, you will have to ship it via Miami. And then from Miami, they will have to pack into another container and then get it to the UK. And that kind of covers all of the routing via ocean. Now, how long does it take to get to the UK? It takes about 18 days, and cargo is typically transferred via Fort de France in Guadeloupe before it gets to the UK. So if you're going to ship your containers, the ship leaves Trinidad, goes to Fort de France, it offloads in Fort de France, and then it goes onto another vessel in Fort de France, and then it goes directly to the UK. About 18 days. If you're coming from the UK to Trinidad, it goes directly from a port in the UK to Trinidad, and it doesn't come off the vessel. And it takes about 16 days from the UK to come to Trinidad. On the air freight side, of course, we do have BA flying from Trinidad to the UK, but I think it's about 3 days a week now. But really and truly, if you're regularly going to send cargo from Trinidad to the UK via air freight, your cargo is mostly going to be routed via Miami, which means that you go onto Cal or Amerijet from Trinidad to Miami, and then from Miami, they put it onto another plane, and it then goes to the UK. And that typically takes about 2 to 5 days. Let me just give you an idea of the cost. I would have given you a little breakdown of that cost there, but the one that you really got to pay attention to is your per pound pricing. It's about $8 to get to the US. Depending on your volume, that price could significantly go down. So if you're shipping 200 to 300 pounds per shipment, your price could probably go down to $4 to $5 US. These prices are just to kind of give you an overview of what the cost is like. Typically, you'd be able to get a quotation from us within like 4 to 5 hours. Once you understand the size of the cargo that you're sending and the type of the commodity that you're sending out as well, you'll be able to get a quotation. It's fairly easy to get to the UK. Most people, when they're considering first exporting, they always look at the US market because we are very much accustomed to using to get into the US market, and the logistics of the US market is fairly simple. But getting to the UK is also quite simple. On the ocean side, very, very simple. And on the air side, once you know how to route your cargo properly via Miami, you should not have much of an issue. On the export side, we do have some strain on capacity going out, depending on the type of cargo that you're sending out, because there's a heavy volume of export cargo leaving Trinidad, especially on things like fresh fish and so on. You do have to plan very well around the type of items that you are sending out to the UK. So you want to make sure that you're having a discussion with your logistics provider long in advance, especially if you're doing anything that is perishable or any items that have to be maintained at a certain temperature. You do want to have a discussion with your freight forwarder long in advance. ensure that you understand what the supply chain looks like, understand what are the potential challenges. I know that there was a discussion that someone from the Cocoa Development Board was on earlier on, shipping chocolates and so on, where you have to have temperature controls on it. You need to make sure that you have the right packaging in place, that you need to make sure that you have the right routing in place to ensure that your cargo gets delivered on time. One of the things that you really got to pay attention to is cost versus transit. Now, I told you guys that on average with full containers, it takes about 16 to 18 days to get to the UK. And that's if you take the most direct route. If you go from here to Fort de France to the UK, it'll take you that amount. But you could probably also get an export price that's half the price that I quoted here. Somebody might tell you, you could get to the UK for $1,000, but then it takes you about 40 days to get there because you go through two US ports and then you go to another place. And by the time you get to the UK, it's day number 40. And especially if you're shipping goods where there's a very short lifespan for the goods, or if the goods are consumer goods and their expiration dates, you then want to consider how many days your goods would have actually spent in transit versus if you had spent a little bit more money to get it there earlier on. So there's always this consideration of price versus transit when getting to the UK. And that is essentially the overview of getting goods to the UK. And I would love to take any questions or any concerns that you would have, or if anybody had any particular experience moving goods to the UK in the past and you've had challenges with it, I would love to be able to discuss it with you and understand how we could help you to get that done better. Trudy?
Thank you, Sean, and thank you for giving us the facts about the logistics of shipping to the UK. I think it's been really eye-opening for possibly those who would not have had the opportunity to do so. The information you provided about weight versus volume and less than container load. We thank you for the information on shipping, and I know that your information is going to London Heathrow, so that would be good for our stakeholders to note. And yes, it's important to plan well with our logistics providers. So now, Sean, we're going to open the floor to comments, and someone is asking if your presentation can be shared with participants, and well, that's up to you to let us know, Sean. And
oh, sure, yeah, I'll send it to Melissa or Amar, and yeah, and you can share it.
Wonderful, great, thank you. So that's one of the questions showing up in the chat.
Stop sharing there for a second so I could see what's going on in the chat.
You've been complimented, Sean. Great information. We do have some time, folks, so please take the opportunity to raise your questions with Sean, who can give you as much information as possible.
Yes. While I'm on it, I know Kanika addressed the whole issue with customs as well. I remember it was someone from Casey Candy who had brought up that question on the challenges of the EUR1 certificate. That is a really major challenge, and it's definitely something that Export TT and the ministry can take up together to discuss with customs. And Trudy would be happy to work with you guys on that, to liaise with the controller to see what could be put in place to get that sorted out. But right now the situation is not acceptable, especially when it comes to air freight. Because if you're shipping things via air freight and it takes 3 or 4 days to get to the UK and you only get your EUR certificate on day number 3 after the shipment has left Trinidad, then you put your importer in the UK at a major disadvantage. So that is really something that needs to be addressed, and I'm sure that there are ways around that we can get that done.
Yes, Sean. Yes, we are committed to working with Export TT and yourself to find a solution to that problem, and we will use our good offices to liaise with the controller and see if we can get a change to that scenario at customs.
Yeah. And there are 2 other things I just wanted to point out as well. We also have a customer who's used that Panjiva facility from Export TT. It's a very, very good tool, and I really encourage everybody to make use of it. Depending on what you are shipping out, really get to Export TT and find out who the buyers are. Go ahead and contact them and really reach out to people on your own. And the last thing I want to say to people as well, I'm not sure if the ministry will share some more information, but Exim Bank has great features available to exporters to help them to finance their shipments and to get paid up front and so on. So if you're considering exporting to the UK or exporting in general, definitely go to the Exim Bank's website. Have a look at the type of facilities that are available to you and how they could be useful to you as an exporter to help finance your exports out of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, that is a very good bit of advice. Exim Bank has a lot of information. Perhaps we can invite them to speak at one of our next sessions. And I see the Cocoa Development Company has their hand up and wishes to raise a question. You may proceed.
Yeah, hi, Sean. My question has to do with the air freight, and because we've done shipping of samples to Europe and stuff like that on behalf of stakeholders for international competitions and stuff. But is there any air or courier service that you know of that has dedicated chilled space? Or because everything we always have to create our own cool packs, etc. I think there was a time we had requested something from British Airways, and they were saying the most they could do is make sure the packages it's shaded from the sun, on the tarmac. That's it.
Right.
Do you know of any air courier service that could give that could have the chocolate stay cool?
Yeah, so how many pounds are you shipping?
Well, in that instance, it was a competition. So it may have been probably small, like 10 pounds or something. But I mean, if there's someone who has now a customer and, you're building your relationship, so they start with small amounts of chocolates. Let's say it goes up to maybe a half a pallet or something.
Yeah, so one of the things that you got to be careful when you use passenger airlines, right? Because remember, in passenger airlines, especially when they have heavy loads, they always prioritize passenger luggage over commercial cargo.
Yeah.
So on the export side, there are two carriers that you always want to consider. And I know some people would automatically go to DHL and FedEx, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't. Definitely you could and have that discussion with them. But we always like to really understand who are the carriers that move in cargo, as in who owns the aircraft. So when it comes to the cargo side, there are two main cargo operators out of Trinidad. One would be CAL, and the other one would be Amerijet. And both of them fly from Port of Spain into Miami. And then from Miami, you could connect directly into London. So the first thing is that if you look at something like chocolate, is that you really want to understand the packaging around how you maintain that temperature. So right now, for example, we are moving vaccines into Guyana and we are packing them in the UK. And then, they're packed in such a way that they could get 90 hours of maintaining that temperature, no matter what happens to that, right? So the first is to really understand what your packaging should look like. And one of the things that I would point you in the direction of will be Land, Sea, and Ice in Chaguaramas. They export fresh fish out of Trinidad, so they really understand the packaging around really maintaining temperatures and so on. And I suspect that you could use some of those lessons when it comes to something like chocolate.
Yeah.
I feel like it's fairly easy to pack chocolate or to pack anything and maintain. I'm guessing in chocolate, you probably have to maintain about 6 to 7 degrees. What is the temperature you're looking to maintain?
No, it actually, once you could have even regular AC, even 17, 18 degrees, it's fine.
Right.
Because these chocolates don't have preservatives, because they would be made from, they're premium chocolates from Trinitario beans. So they would not have preservative in them. So they could, but they stay well in air condition. They will not break up from 18 degrees and lower is ideal, I think.
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, just with the standard packaging that we use right now in the industry, to maintain that, you could safely say, if you use some of the standard packaging, it'll maintain for at least 5 days. And if you think about it, if you leave today to go to Miami, it'll be in Miami in a few hours. And then what you want to do is that you want to do something called a guaranteed to fly service on chocolates. Because in other words, you don't want your packages to get to Miami and it sits down there for 3 days waiting on space for the next aircraft to get to
Oh my
Miami.
God. Yeah.
So, to London. So what you want to say is you want to say guaranteed to fly. So it leaves Trinidad, it gets to Miami, and it's guaranteed to get on the next available flight out of Miami to
Yeah.
London. Now, of course, that costs you a little bit more, but then you always have to weigh the risk versus the reward. And that's why it really comes down to you having a good discussion with your logistics provider to say, listen, not just tell me about how long it takes to get to the UK. Tell me which plane you put it on from Trinidad to Miami. Tell me what time it arrives in Miami. Tell me what time the next flight leaves Miami. And tell me when it actually arrives into London. If you ask and you demand that kind of service from your logistics providers and you tell them to, really tell me about it, then you could share that information with your buyer as well. It inspires a lot more confidence in your buyer, and they feel like, you're actually going to get your stuff done in time.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, is it, just out of curiosity, I believe dry ice is not allowed on planes, right?
It is. So it is. And of course,
the vaccines coming in.
You have to have certain documentation, and you have to make certain hazardous declarations by when you put it on there. And different carriers have different rules. So, for example, dry ice will not be allowed on a passenger aircraft, but it would be allowed on an all cargo aircraft, which is why you have to understand. So, like if it was my chocolate, I wouldn't depend on getting it to the UK via BA. I would say, okay, how do I develop a routing via Miami that I feel is a lot more consistent and a lot more reliable than going through BA.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, this was actually pretty good.
No worries.
I appreciate it because like I said, so far it's just, we've done a small shipment for a competition. We had a member of staff who had traveled with some sample chocolates to a conference. And apart from that, I have stakeholders who they're looking to ship and they're trying to understand certain things. And I'm like, I don't have this data in my head for you, so I appreciate that part because I think for chocolate, that has been one of the issues, the breakdown in terms of being able to ship, not necessarily a container as yet.
Right.
A smaller person now starting.
Well, you see, and that's where discussions and forums like these come in really well, right? Because as the Cocoa Development Board, I guess you guys have the ability to take production from different individual manufacturers in the country and then put it together. And once you start going from 100 pounds, 200, your price per pound drops significantly. So hopefully what this could inspire is not just on the Cocoa Development Board, but if you have exporters generally and you can start consolidating and you get like a 500 pound shipment, 1,000 pound shipment, the price per pound drops significantly. And the same thing on the ocean side. If the price of moving one pallet versus 10 pallets is quite significant.
It drops,
Yeah, really, really. So if we could get this more of a cooperative, and I'm not sure, maybe Kanika may have something to say about it in terms of Export TT facilitating that kind of a discussion. But if we understand who are the people exporting to the UK, and one person is doing a pallet here or 5 pounds here, how do we consolidate? How do we get everybody working together? But that's definitely something that could come out of this discussion as well.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful discussion. Actually, we have a related question. What's the smallest weight that can be shipped to the UK by plane and by sea?
So the smallest weight that could be shipped is, I would say 1 pound, or you could ship half of a pound. You could ship anything you want. The bigger question is, what is your minimum shipping cost? So the minimum shipping cost on 1 pound will probably be about 100 to 150 US, whereas maybe 10 pounds will cost you the same 100 to 150 US. So it really comes down to what your minimums are. I would say out to the UK, it'll probably be about 150 pounds. When it comes to the ocean side, I would say again, your minimum cost will be about maybe 250 to 300 dollars US to ship a pallet, maybe a little bit more. But again, that'll be up to a pallet, which is 48 inches by 40 inches by 40 inches, right? So, and that typically a pallet will be anywhere between 300 to 400 pounds. But even if you ship 1 pound via ocean, it would still cost you that minimum 300. So the key is to get more and more cargo. The more cargo you get together, the price per pound or the price per unit continues to drop significantly.
Great, thanks so much for that answer. And I think you've made the point that we need to collaborate more. Businesses need to work together to be able to ship and to reduce the cost of exporting.
For sure, for sure. That's the key to it. The key to it is to always build markets of size. And once you start working together, you know, it makes it easier for everybody.
Wonderful, thanks so much. And I'm just watching the chat room, making sure we are covering all the questions, all the comments.
Hi, Trudy, Amar here. We have a question from Miss Catherine Agong. It's regarding the Panjiva website. She's asking if Export TT will undertake the searches, or will the participants be provided with the sign-in details?
Yes.
Yes, hi. All right, so yes, we will be able to do the searches for you if you give us your product and the market that you're looking at. We can find those buyers for you and any contact information that's available on the database. In terms of giving the credentials, we have a certain limit on how many credentials we can give out. So it depends on when you come, whether if a company is not using it at that point in time, we could do a training session with you and we could allow you to use it for about 2 to 4 weeks. And if a company is using it, then you may have to wait until it's available again.
Thank you, Kanika.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, as we have come to the end of our, Nikita at Candy, go ahead, please.
Just one question beyond the shipping. I'm going back to the packaging, if you all will permit me. Is being ISO certified part of the criteria to ship? I'm just asking because I know there are a lot of smaller companies that will be listening.
All right, so what I had to see when I was looking, it depends on the product, whether certain certifications or standards are required. Generally, they'll be looking for the HACCP certification or GMP. That would generally allow you to ship any products. In terms of the ISO, that would be product specific. So if you sent me like a list of your products, I could search which ISO is required or whether they're required at all.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
And thank you very much, Nikita, for raising that question on packaging. And so we can get more information on it. And so we have come to the end. I would like to thank each of our presenters and you, our audience, for the meaningful and engaging discussions which we have had. And I'm sure proved to be of benefit to everyone that was on our platform today. I'd especially like to thank Ms. Kanika Espinoza from Export TT and Mr. Sean Rampasad from Rams Logistics for partnering with the Ministry of Trade and Industry on this initiative. Your participation has undoubtedly brought practical information and guidance to new, existing, and potential traders on some of the information and guidance needed and the market requirements for trade with the UK, as well as providing useful information on shipping to and from that market. I trust that the information provided by the ministry would have also increased our stakeholders' knowledge of the opportunities available under the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. As I mentioned before, this is the first of our awareness sessions, which will be hosted by the ministry, and we intend to hold subsequent sessions covering other areas of the agreement, including services and investment. If there are topics you will be interested in, I encourage you to be on the lookout on our website and social media platforms for when these sessions become open for registration. If there are any further questions that you have, you can contact us and we'll try our best to work with you. In closing, on behalf of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, I would like to say thank you to all of you for joining us today. and we hope to see you in our subsequent awareness sessions, CARIFORUM-UK EPA. Thank you again, and do enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Goodbye, everyone.